The story opens on a magic tree in a glowing cave, setting a legendary tone. A beat-up martial artist realizes one lifetime isn't enough to become the strongest. We get lore about a divine dragon guarding a golden fruit of immortality. The martial artist confirms the legend is real, looking absolutely determined to get it. He finally reaches the glowing tree after what was probably a hell of a journey. A close-up reveals the prize, the legendary fruit of immortality. Our guy sits on the corpse of the divine dragon he just bodied for that fruit. Wounded and exhausted, he stumbles toward his goal, barely able to stand. He reaches for the fruit, thinking this will let him master martial arts forever. Without a second thought, he chomps down on the glowing immortality fruit. His name is Gilus Elragon, the world's strongest, now powered up by the fruit. Decades later, we see a fancy estate while people gossip about the old man dying. The scene cuts to a lavish bedroom where a family surrounds a man on his deathbed. We meet his first son, Gilliam, who looks torn up about his father's condition. The old man is Gilfus, telling his son his time has simply come. A grandchild says the manor is lonely, but Gilfus tells him not to be weak. Gilfus reflects that the legends of immortality were just a bunch of lies. He caresses his grandchild's head, saying he was at least blessed with a family. Old Gilfus puts on a brave face, calling his children beloved. He declares he has no regrets, but the crying maids suggest otherwise. His inner thoughts betray him. He's furious and full of regret. He remembers his wife, wishing he had more time with his family. He grits his teeth, absolutely livid about his life ending so soon. Gilfus reaches out, desperately clinging to his dream of ultimate martial arts. His son weeps as Gilus Elragon finally closes his eyes and dies. Plot twist. A baby with the same intense golden eyes opens them. Gilfus wakes up as a baby, confused by the room and his light body. He looks down at his tiny baby hands in complete and utter shock. The realization hits him hard as he stares at his new infant hands. He internally panics, confirming he has somehow become a baby. He tries to compose himself, remembering he's a 10-star level master. Lying in a crib, he wonders what kind of insane power did this to him. His eyes widen as he starts connecting the dots about his situation. He remembers the dragon, the tree, and the fruit he ate decades ago. He realizes the fruit's power wasn't immortality, but straight-up reincarnation. Baby Gilfus grins like a maniac, hyped for a second chance to get stronger. He looks around and notices the nursery is filled with dozens of other babies. He figures he's reborn into his own family, but questions the baby army. A group of maids enters the room with a cart, looking professional and ominous. One maid prepares a bottle, and Gilfus assumes it's just normal feeding time. A maid casually brings out a live, struggling goblin. This is not on the menu. Two maids hold the goblin down and force-feed it a glowing red liquid. The goblin convulses as the red liquid courses through its body. The goblin explodes, splattering blood all over Gilfus and his crib. Covered in blood, Gilfus hears the maids say the liquid is safe if diluted. A maid picks up the blood-splattered Gilfus to feed him next. He sees the bottle is filled with the same red liquid that made the goblin pop. He senses immense power in the liquid and knows it's too dangerous for a baby. The maid brings the bottle to his lips, ready to feed him the dangerous concoction. His baby instincts kick in and he starts drinking, forgetting all his master training. Gilfus has a vision of ancient dragons, realizing he's drinking their actual blood. He connects the dots about the maids diluting the liquid and decides he has to spit it out. His baby body betrays his master mind as he keeps chugging the explosive dragon juice. He sees the other babies instinctively spitting it out while he's already swallowed some. In a moment of clarity, Gilfus decides this isn't a crisis, it's a massive opportunity. He plans to absorb the power to surpass his old self and reach the peak of martial arts. Baby Gilfus commits, his eyes rolling back as he chugs the entire deadly bottle. He grabs the bottle with his own tiny hands to down it faster, taking control of his own power-up. The ancient dragon's power surges through his infant body like a violent vortex. He starts convulsing with his eyes rolled back, looking like he's about to pop just like the goblin. He grits his baby teeth, internally roaring not to underestimate the great Gilus Elragon. With sheer willpower, he fights to control the overwhelming energy flooding his system. The maid holding him is completely stunned that this infant is actually absorbing the power. Gilfus forces the bottle deeper, determined to drain every last drop of that source power. He gets a flash of ancient dragons locked in combat as he processes their bloodline. The vision intensifies, showing a golden dragon dominating another with raw power. He's shocked how easily he's absorbing it, but immediately accepts it as a perfect outcome. Gilfus lies in his crib, exhausted but successful, his little fists glowing with power. He notes the other babies survived too, giving some credit to a baby's survival instinct. After the most intense feeding of his life, the martial arts master passes out from exhaustion. A 7-year time skip happens as someone is heard counting intense workout reps. A now shredded 7-year-old Gilfus does one-handed push-ups with a boulder on his feet. He finishes his set by casually kicking the massive boulder high into the sky. He then leaps up and punches the boulder, shattering it into a million pieces. He introduces his new identity, Gilus Elragon, admiring his dragon blood-fueled physique. We get a lore drop explaining that all living beings possess source power. The narrator confirms the dragon's blood was packed with an insane amount of this power. Zeke was the only one to absorb it all because he already had the divine dragon's power. This fusion of powers created a body that underwent changes surprising even himself. Despite his insane growth, Zeke is disappointed he's only reached a 1-star level. He complains he should be at 4 stars by now, kicking off an explanation of the power system. The star system is explained as compressed source power, with more stars meaning more strength. A flashback reminds us his old self, Gilfus, was the only person to ever reach 10 stars. Zeke reveals it's been 7 years since he was reborn as an illegitimate child of the family head. He reveals his mother is dead and his deadbeat dad has never even shown his face. Zeke figures out he's been reincarnated 1,000 years into the future, which is a hell of a jump. He realizes this new era is a brutal survival of the fittest world, with the baby trial as proof. This dragon trial ritual is a tradition to weed out the weak Eldragon children. Only the babies who survive the trial are supposed to be trained as Eldragon warriors. Zeke eyes a maid, noting that he's been completely isolated instead of being trained. He finally asks a maid why he's been left alone and where the other kids are. The maid gives him the classic NPC response, refusing to answer his questions. Zeke complains that for 7 years he's seen no instructors, only maids, and it's weird. He tries to play it cool, saying he can handle his own physical training anyway. He presses the maid again, asking for any information about the main family. The maid repeats her non-answer, proving she's a master of stonewalling. Zeke finally loses his temper, demanding to know if that's all she's programmed to say. The maid looks terrified by his aura but sticks to her script, refusing to answer. He asks if his treatment is unusually harsh, but she says her orders are just to care for him. Zeke sizes up the maid, realizing she's a 3-star practitioner who could have been training him. Zeke watches the maid leave, wondering if she's finally done with her NPC routine. He decides to peace out and heads into a glowing forest for some solo training. Zeke yanks a random plant out of the ground with his bare hands. Without a second thought, he shoves the entire leafy part into his mouth. He complains about the taste, but calls eating poisonous grass a part of his training. Zeke gets serious, realizing a constant gaze has been following him around. He's clearly annoyed by the stalker and wishes they'd just show themselves already. He stands in a clearing, trying to bait his observer by calling this a minor issue. Zeke hides in the bushes, telling his stalker to stop being a coward and come out. His eyes narrow as he senses something big approaching from the shadows. He spots a massive, demonic-looking anger boar radiating dark energy. Zeke notes the boar's black mist is a new phenomenon from the last 1,000 years. The boar sniffs the ground, clearly having picked up his scent. The anger boar locks onto Zeke's position and prepares for a full-on charge. The boar barrels through the forest, heading straight for our boy's hiding spot. Zeke grins like a psycho, absolutely thrilled to finally have a real fight. He effortlessly sidesteps the boar's attack like it's moving in slow motion. Zeke charges up his fist with that golden dragon power he chugged as a baby. He one-shots the massive boar with a single explosive punch to the gut. Zeke admires his glowing hand, impressed by the power of his 1-star level. He carries the boar home, already thinking about leaving this boring place for good. Zeke decides if he's going on a journey, he's definitely heading for the sea. A mysterious cloaked man watches from a tree, stunned by Zeke's self-taught power. The stalker recaps Zeke's tragic backstory of being an abandoned, uneducated orphan. The cloaked man finds the potential of this illegitimate child very interesting for the future. The mysterious observer vanishes in a flash of light, his watch now over. The scene cuts back to Zeke's lonely cabin in the middle of nowhere. Zeke, packed and ready to leave, senses several powerful fighters outside his door. He eavesdrops as the visitors comment on the peaceful countryside, totally oblivious. Zeke throws the door open, confronting the group and demanding to know their business. He recognizes the Eldragon family emblem on their uniforms and gets suspicious. One of the uniformed men takes an authoritative step forward to assert dominance. The leader of the group introduces themselves and says they've come to escort him. The old man informs Zeke that he is required to take an examination. Zeke is completely caught off guard by the sudden mention of an exam. He starts freaking out, remembering he hasn't been taught a single thing for 7 years. His internal screaming echoes over the shot of his isolated home. Now in a fancy uniform, Zeke reflects on his unexpected return to the main family. He walks toward the massive Elragon castle alongside other kids his age. A flashback shows he was told he couldn't enter the grounds in his old clothes. We see the emblem for the Dragon's Nest, the family's elite training institution. Lore Drop explains all Elragon kids train until age 7 for the entrance exam. Zeke smirks, completely unbothered by the fact he's had 0 formal training. He reflects on being dragged all the way from the frontier for this mandatory test. Zeke sulks, annoyed that his escape plan was ruined by their perfect timing. A chibi Zeke brushes off his foiled escape plan like it's no big deal. Zeke squats by himself in a grand hall looking completely out of place. A kind-looking blue-haired boy named Rangus asks if he's in trouble. Rangus introduces himself while Zeke looks up, asking who the hell he is. Zeke looks at the boy with a curious expression, clearly sizing him up. Zeke snaps out of it and apologizes to Rangus for being so blunt. He introduces himself as Zeke, trying to be a bit more sociable for once. Chibi Zeke admits he's just confused about what this whole exam is even for. Rangus gets nervous, saying the test is the same every year, implying Zeke should know. Rangus absolutely loses it when he realizes Zeke has done 0 prep for this exam. Just as Rangus is about to spill the beans, some punk yells at him from across the way. Both Zeke and Rangus turn to see who's got the nerve to interrupt their conversation. A new bully named Retin shows up to mock Rangus for even being there. Rangus tries to defend himself, but Retin just laughs in his face. Retin and his goons mock Rangus, calling his father a worthless pseudo-dragon. Zeke watches the bully clench his fist, clearly not liking this classist bullshit. We get a lore drop on the Elragon family's military-style hierarchy. At the bottom of the barrel are the novice whelp dragons. A step up from that are the regular soldier-child dragons. Then you have the badass captain-level adult dragons with their flame powers. Near the top are the executive-level elder dragons, who are clearly the bosses. And at the absolute bottom are pseudo-dragons, the family's official failures. It's revealed that being a pseudo-dragon is a title for washouts like Rangus's dad. Rangus clenches his fist, determined to prove his bloodline isn't fake. Zeke, ever the pragmatist, asks Rangus why he even cares what these clowns think. Rangus argues that you can't just give up without even trying to prove them wrong. Zeke steps up to Retin, asking him who the hell he thinks he is. He calmly asks the bully why he thinks it's impossible for Rangus to pass. Retin grabs Rangus, yelling that it's because the kid is obviously weak. Rangus looks shocked as Zeke questions the bully's definition of weak. Zeke, with his golden aura flaring, says Rangus is probably stronger than them. The bully's eye reflects Zeke's confident smirk, and you know it's about to go down. Retin gets furious, pointing at Zeke for daring to call them weaker than Rangus. An examiner cuts the drama short by yelling for everyone's attention. The adult dragon examiner announces the entrance exam is officially starting. Retin gives Zeke a parting death glare, promising he'll get his later. Zeke acts like a grandpa, complaining about kids these days, confusing the hell out of Rangus. Zeke explains that of course the guy got mad since he called him weak. He peeks around a corner asking Rangus if he really thinks he can't pass. Zeke points out that since the exam is mandatory, there's no point in being negative. Rangus is floored that Zeke doesn't even know you can withdraw from the exam. Rangus, being a good dude, suggests Zeke withdraw too so he doesn't get hurt. Zeke smugly says someone at his level couldn't withdraw even if he wanted to. He cheerfully tells a bewildered Rangus to hurry up before the test starts without them. The examiner explains the test is simple. Just scratch a giant rock and you pass. The examiner smirks, adding the catch that they only get 3 attempts. Zeke thinks the test sounds way too easy, while Rangus is already panicking. He flashes back to the insane dragon trial, thinking this test is a joke in comparison. Zeke looks at his number 1 tag, feeling like this whole thing is anticlimactic. The examiner screams for the first contestant to begin the test. The first kid up looks like he's about to piss his pants from nervousness. He swings a provided sword with all his might, but it just bounces off the rock. The other kids, including Rangus, cover their ears from the painful sound. The sword shatters on impact, and the kid's hands are completely shredded. Zeke and the others look on in shock as the easy test claims its first victim. The examiner emotionlessly calls for the next kid as another one lies defeated on the ground. Zeke looks unimpressed while Rangus is having a full-blown panic attack next to him. Zeke asks what the hell the rock is since he's been living in a cabin for 7 years. A lore drop explains the regeneration stone reflects brute force back at you hundreds of times stronger. Zeke learns you have to use source power to damage it, making it a test of skill, not strength. Zeke realizes the test is about source power control, not just martial arts, a big change from his era. He looks thoughtful, probably realizing how much the world has changed in 1,000 years. Zeke spots Retin and his goons in the crowd, who are all sitting there looking smug. The test continues with a montage of kids getting absolutely wrecked by the magic rock. Another kid gets his ass handed to him, proving this test is designed to break people. We see a rare successful candidate, number 308, proving it's not entirely impossible. It's Rangus's turn, and he immediately tries to convince Zeke they should both withdraw. Zeke gives his new friend a reassuring pat, telling him not to worry about it. Rangus watches Zeke walk away, looking like he's about to witness a murder. Zeke steps onto the field, ready to show these kids how a real master does it. He powers up his golden aura, telling the examiner he won't be needing a weapon. Zeke confidently declares his fist is more than enough to get the job done. The other kids mock him from the stands, betting his whole arm is about to shatter. Rangus is losing his mind, regretting not trying harder to stop his reckless friend. The examiner gives the signal to begin, and Rangus looks like he's about to faint. Zeke inspects the stone, recognizing it as a mineral he's never seen in his past life. He charges his fist with golden energy, deciding to just punch first and ask questions later. Rangus screams, making a last-ditch effort to stop Zeke from pulverizing his own hand. Zeke grins like a maniac, finally getting to unleash the power he's been training for 7 years. He unleashes his Dragon Destruction combat arts, a technique from his past life as Gilfas. Zeke's burst strike connects with the stone, and he's clearly not aiming for just a scratch. The regeneration stone doesn't just crack, it completely explodes into a cloud of dust. Rangus gets blasted by the shockwave, his face a perfect picture of absolute disbelief. The examiner just stands there, looking completely unfazed as he jots down notes. Zeke stands in the aftermath with a satisfied smile, like he didn't just break the entire test. He looks at his bloody, shredded hand and admits he might have overdone it a little. The entire crowd of kids is stunned into absolute silence by the insane display of power. Retin the bully looks on, his jaw on the floor after witnessing the impossible. A new blonde girl with golden eyes smirks, clearly intrigued by the new powerhouse. Rangus finally snaps out of his shock and starts screaming his head off. Zeke stands there proudly with his wrecked arm, grinning like the king of the world. The examiner's inner monologue reveals that destroying the stone requires at least a 4-star level. The examiner recognizes Zeke's technique, connecting it to something he's seen before. Zeke casually walks up to the examiner and asks if he passed, flexing on everyone. The examiner announces that number 315 has passed, and Zeke looks smug as hell. A different blonde examiner hands Zeke a glowing potion as a reward for his performance. The new examiner gives him a shady smile and tells him to get lost. Zeke walks off, complaining that everyone in this era is way too uptight. Rangus runs up to him, gushing about how amazing it was that he shattered the stone. Zeke asks Rangus what the potion is, since he's 1,000 years behind on modern medicine. Rangus explains it's a standard healing potion, even showing Zeke his own bottle. Zeke inspects the liquid, realizing it's a high-grade spirit medicine, not some cheap potion. A lore drop reveals the potion is made from an extremely rare ingredient, so it's definitely not standard. The ingredients are listed as rare herbs and cores from divine and phantom beasts. The text confirms it's a legendary elixir that boosts source power and is nearly impossible to create. Zeke chugs the entire legendary potion in one go, because why savor a power-up? The potion instantly heals his shredded arm, leaving even the 10-star master a little shocked. Zeke freaks out over the quality, while Rangus is just like, yeah, our family potions are good. Rangus is completely oblivious to the potion's rarity, asking Zeke why he's so surprised. Rangus says Zeke destroying the stone was way more amazing than some instant heal juice. Zeke holds the empty bottle, calling it the culmination of 1,000 years of human wisdom. Rangus praises Zeke's strength, and Zeke just casually says he's aiming to be the strongest. The exam continues with other kids passing, but they all look like they barely survived. Zeke and Rangus watch from the stands as Rangus starts getting visibly nervous again. It's finally Rangus's turn, and he looks like he's about to walk his own green mile. Zeke's pep talk completely backfires as Rangus begs him not to set such high expectations. Zeke looks on, completely baffled by his new friend's absolute lack of confidence. Rangus steps into the arena with a sword, looking like he's about to face a firing squad. He lets out a desperate scream and swings the sword with a burst of blue energy. The stone reflects his attack, sending him flying backward onto the ground. First attempt failed. Rangus gets back on his feet, determined to give it another shot despite the failure. His second attempt fails just as spectacularly, leaving him completely drained on the floor. Rangus sits in the dirt, staring at his hands in utter disbelief and despair. Retin and his goon squad start laughing their asses off from the stands. Retin smugly calls out Zeke, asking what happened to Rangus being stronger than them. The bully points at the defeated Rangus, rubbing the failure right in Zeke's face. The examiner asks Rangus if he'll take his last try while the bullies keep on laughing. Rangus looks completely broken, stammering as he prepares to forfeit the entire exam. Zeke suddenly appears on the field, interrupting Rangus's scheduled breakdown. Zeke calls him out, asking why the hell he's using a sword instead of a spear. Rangus is completely confused, but Zeke insists he's using the wrong weapon for his body. The examiner smirks from the sidelines, clearly knowing Zeke is onto something. Retin's crew mocks Zeke's advice, yelling that Rangus's dad taught him swordsmanship. The bullies agree that changing weapons won't fix someone who's inherently a failure. Zeke asks the examiner if a weapon change is allowed, and the guy gives him the green light. Zeke gives Rangus a cheerful thumbs up, but the poor kid is still completely lost. Zeke's face turns demonic as he asks Rangus if he's just going to accept failure. Rangus flashes back to his father, encouraging him during his childhood training. He finds his resolve, getting to his feet and declaring that he's not done yet. Rangus stands with Zeke, deciding to ditch the sword and try the spear for his final attempt. A lore drop reveals his father failed the exam and was branded a pseudo-dragon. We see a flashback of his dad being a genuinely good father despite his failure status. The flashback shows his dad teaching him with a sword, never giving up on his son. Rangus stands tall with a spear, determined to prove his father's legacy isn't a joke. He decides to put his faith in Zeke's weird advice since his own plan clearly failed. Rangus immediately panics, admitting he has no idea how to actually use a spear. Zeke gives him the simplest instruction ever. Just thrust straight forward and don't think. Rangus grips the spear, repeating Zeke's simple command to himself like a mantra. He remembers Zeke's words about how you can't know the outcome without trying first. Inspired by Zeke's faith, Rangus decides to believe in himself for the first time. He takes a stance with the spear, channeling all his resolve into this one final attack. His eyes glow as he feels a massive surge of source power, unlike anything with the sword. He unleashes a powerful thrust that connects with the stone, creating a huge impact. Retin and his cronies are still laughing, completely oblivious that Rangus just succeeded. Rangus realizes the spear feels like a natural extension of his body, a perfect fit. Rangus's spear attack completely pierces the regeneration stone, proving Zeke was right all along. Retin and his goons are absolutely floored, their jaws on the ground in complete disbelief. Even the examiners are impressed, noting he didn't just scratch it but went straight through. Zeke claps for a stunned Rangus, who has no idea what he just managed to accomplish. The stoic examiner calmly marks down that number 14 has officially passed the test. Rangus stares at his hands and the spear, still processing that he actually passed. Zeke throws an arm around a crying Rangus, telling him he knew he could do it. Rangus finally snaps out of his shock and tackles Zeke in a hug, screaming with joy. Retin's crew refuses to accept it, calling Rangus's success a complete coincidence. Retin clenches his fist in silent fury, clearly not happy about being proven wrong. The examiner shouts that the examination is officially over, ending the drama for now. He announces that the entrance ceremony for the Dragon's Nest will now begin. Zeke and Rangus walk with the other kids, wondering if there are more tests ahead. Chibi Zeke asks what they do now, and Chibi Rangus says it's not about doing anything. Rangus explains the leadership of the Eldragon family will give them congratulatory speeches. A group of high-ranking officers marches in, looking like they own the place. A close-up reveals the leader, a man with red-tipped hair and a terrifying aura. Zeke asks who the gloomy-looking man is, and Rangus absolutely loses his mind. Rangus panics, revealing that the scary guy is the head of the entire family. Zeke covers Rangus's mouth, telling him to be quiet before he gets them both killed. Rangus begs Zeke to stay quiet while Zeke just looks bored by the whole thing. Zeke's golden eyes scan the leadership, sizing up the family's current strength. He sits in the crowd, analyzing the power levels of the family's top brass. Zeke's inner monologue notes several 7-star and 6-star practitioners, a formidable force. He then focuses his attention on the man at the very top, the family head. A title card introduces the family head as Gilus Elragon, an 8-star level practitioner. Zeke reflects that 1,000 years ago, 8-star masters were almost unheard of. Zeke whispers to a terrified Rangus that he doesn't like the guy's vibe at all. His inner thoughts drop a bomb. This 8-star powerhouse is his deadbeat father. An officer calls for attention as Balza prepares to deliver his words of wisdom. Balza just glares at the children, his speech being a wave of pure intimidation. Zeke looks completely unimpressed by his father's attempt at a motivational speech. The other kids, however, are getting crushed by the sheer pressure of his aura. Zeke notices Rangus is struggling to breathe under the immense spiritual pressure. He realizes all the other children are being overwhelmed by Balza's power alone. Zeke senses the tremendous hatred radiating from his father, which is a huge red flag. He confirms his first impression, deciding he really doesn't like his dad. Balza turns and walks away without another word, his speech officially concluded. A new cheerful blonde officer claps his hands together, breaking the tense silence. The blonde officer gushes about how grateful they should be for Balza's inspiring words. Zeke watches the new guy take the stage, wondering who this loudmouth is. The blonde officer laughs, telling the kids to strive to be strong like their leader. The stoic examiner tells the blonde officer he's being too casual, but it lightens the mood. Retin sits in the stands looking pissed off, still salty about Rangus passing. Zeke and Rangus sit together, the tension finally broken by the new speaker. A different instructor announces they will now reveal the dormitory assignments for the students. Zeke asks Rangus if they're not all going to the same place, showing his ignorance again. Rangus explains there are 4 different halls: north, south, east, and west. The instructor calls Zeke's number 315, and he says goodbye to his new friend. Zeke arrives at the massive Dragon's Nest East Hall, looking a bit overwhelmed. Zeke grins, realizing he and Rangus got assigned to the same dorm hall. Rangus is just happy he won't have to face this military school hell alone. In their new room, Zeke asks if they're done for the day, ready for bed. Rangus calls him out for not listening to the instructor's schedule briefing. Zeke proudly gives a thumbs up, admitting he wasn't listening at all. Rangus tells him to get some sleep because their training starts first thing tomorrow. Zeke looks out the window, remembering his original plan to just dip and go exploring. He reflects on the magic rock and the legendary potion from the exam. Zeke decides staying with the family might be a good way to catch up on 1,000 years. A 1-month time skip shows the massive Eldragon castle, so much for that escape plan. An instructor yells at the kids as they struggle through a breathing technique training. Rangus is sweating buckets, clearly not having a good time with this new exercise. A different eye-patch-wearing instructor notes that some students have already mastered it. He points out the blonde girl from the exam, Leica, whose source power is overflowing. The instructor says she's already close to a 2-star level, which is insane for her age. His attention then shifts to Zeke, who's lifting boulders like it's just another Tuesday. The instructor is baffled, knowing Zeke had 0 training before coming here. Zeke's inner monologue reveals this dragon's breath is a ripoff of his own technique. A lore drop explains breathing techniques are used to absorb atmospheric source power. The efficiency of these techniques depends entirely on the user's skill and ingenuity. Zeke scoffs that this version is useless in a real fight since it only works while sitting still. A flashback shows his original Dragon King's breath allowed power manipulation while moving. He realizes they dumbed down his legendary technique so any idiot could use it. Zeke looks at Leica, who is still training while he's already done for the day. The scene cuts to the dining hall, where all the kids are eating after training. 2 kids stare in horror as Zeke demolishes a mountain of food by himself. Zeke happily chows down on some pie, not a single care in the world. He asks a depressed-looking Rangus what's wrong, telling him to eat up to get strong. Rangus questions Zeke's insane stamina, looking completely drained from the day. Zeke just tells him to eat more and train harder, trying to give him some of his food. He scans the room, noting that some of the other kids are actually pretty well trained. The blonde girl, Leica, walks up to their table and calls Zeke amazing. Zeke looks confused while Rangus does a perfect spit take all over the table. Rangus freaks out, revealing this is Leica, the family head's daughter and a top candidate. Zeke casually drops that he's also the head's son, much to Rangus's horror. Leica overhears and asks if it's true, looking completely surprised by the news. A title card introduces her as Leica Tifona Eldragon, the next head candidate. Leica asks why an illegitimate child with no backing is strong enough to shatter the stone. Zeke just shrugs it off, telling a zoned-out Rangus to keep eating his dinner. Leica stares at him for a second, a little thrown off by his non-answer. She grins, deciding that this weird, powerful kid is definitely interesting. Leica makes a power move, sitting down and offering to take Zeke under her wing. She asks him to become her subordinate, promising to be his official backing. Leica proposes he use his power to help her become the next head of the family. Zeke immediately shuts her down with a hard, no thanks, not even looking at her. Leica is completely caught off guard by the instant rejection from her half-brother. She gets serious, assuming he's also aiming for the head position himself. Zeke's inner monologue sizes her up, noting she's almost a 2-star practitioner. He tells a shocked Leica he has absolutely no interest in family politics or leadership. Leica gets pissed and slams her sword into the table right next to his hand. Zeke unleashes his golden aura, declaring he won't serve anyone. His eyes glow as he drops the ultimate truth bomb. He's the strongest. Leica is completely stunned by his overwhelming presence, her power move backfiring hard. She has an internal crisis, unable to believe she was just overpowered by this nobody. Rangus tries to play mediator while Zeke just continues eating his pie, unbothered. Leica loses her cool completely and challenges Zeke to a duel to force his submission. She storms off as Zeke and Rangus watch with priceless chibi expressions. Other students see the commotion and learn a duel is about to go down. The gossip spreads that Master Leica is fighting, but no one knows who the opponent is. A crowd gathers at the training grounds, wondering who the hell Zeke is. Rangus starts panicking about Zeke fighting a prodigy, but Zeke looks totally calm. Rangus freaks out when Zeke calls him out for using formal speech, reminding him he's the head's son. Chibi Rangus begs Zeke to reconsider while Chibi Zeke just tells him to chill out. Rangus gives Zeke a massive lore dump on Leica's elite background to scare him straight. Zeke deadpans that he only understood she's the head's daughter, dismissing the rest. Rangus has a complete meltdown over Zeke's ignorance of the family's power structure. Zeke just stands there awkwardly while Rangus continues to lose his mind. A close-up shows Rangus is on the verge of a full-blown anxiety attack. Zeke grins, saying that not knowing his opponent's full power just makes it more exciting. Rangus makes one last plea, but Zeke says he never runs from a fight. Zeke points out that Leica is already waiting for him, so there's no turning back now. Leica stands with her sword, radiating power and asking if they're done with the chatter. She impatiently asks if they're ready, while Rangus looks like he's about to faint. Rangus runs to the sidelines, giving up and just begging Zeke to be careful. Zeke turns the tables, telling Leica that she's the one who should be careful. Leica explains her goal is to become the family head and she needs his power. Zeke looks bored out of his mind, asking what her ambition has to do with him. Leica is shocked he doesn't get it, and Zeke trolls her about the family founder. Leica explains there are 5 candidates for the head position, including both of them. She reveals the other candidates are her older brothers, each backed by a branch family. Zeke sums up the complicated family drama as a bunch of stuff he doesn't get. Leica states that as a candidate, she needs to build her power base, starting with him. She throws a rock at his feet to get his attention, signaling the fight is on. Leica leaps into the air, declaring she's going to defeat him right here and now. She brings her greatsword down in a massive swing, but Zeke effortlessly dodges. Leica relentlessly pursues him, but Zeke continues to evade her with ease. The spectators are shocked by her speed while wielding such a heavy training sword. Zeke keeps dodging with a smug look, making her elite techniques look like child's play. The crowd recognizes her immense power, calling it the strength of a branch heir. Leica gets visibly frustrated, wondering why none of her attacks are connecting. Zeke is literally just walking around her attacks like he's taking a stroll in the park. She screams in frustration, unable to land a single hit on the untouchable Zeke. Rangus watches from the side, completely in awe of Zeke's incredible evasive skill. Zeke analyzes her fighting style while Leica yells at him to focus on the match. Leica gets even more furious, putting everything into her next desperate attack. Zeke's fist glows with energy, calmly stating that he is focused, which is why he effortlessly catches her sword arm mid-swing, stopping her dead in her tracks. He can land a clean counterattack, punching her square in the back. Leica spits up from the force of the blow, her offense completely shut down. She stumbles and drops her sword as the crowd gawks, shocked that she was defeated. Zeke schools Leica, explaining that her speed is impressive but ultimately predictable for him. He condescendingly reminds her that at the end of the day, she's still just a 1-star. Leica argues they're the same rank, but Zeke's smug face says it all, ranks her for noobs. Zeke explains he's been reading her every twitch from her breathing to her eye movements. He finishes his lecture by saying the rest is just 1,000 years of combat experience. Leica refuses to accept the lesson and charges in again, calling his explanation ridiculous. Zeke dodges her with a one-handed cartwheel, proving he can literally style on her. He catches her sword arm mid-swing again, because she clearly didn't learn the first time. Zeke sends her flying with another punch, this time launching her into a stone pillar. He stands there posing, looking like he just finished a light warm-up session. The crowd of students absolutely loses their minds, shocked their prodigy got bodied. Rangus starts to celebrate, but Zeke cuts him off, knowing the fight isn't over yet. Zeke explains she tanked the hit with her source power, giving her some props for durability. Leica gets up from the rubble, bruised and bleeding, but still ready for round 2. Zeke tells a worried Rangus to step back because things are about to get serious. He senses a change in her power, realizing she might have just leveled up mid-fight. Leica powers up with a crackling white aura, confirming she just hit 2-star. The spectators recognize the white aura as the mark of a 2-star practitioner. We get a lore drop explaining 2-star lets you project your source power as an aura. Leica actually thanks Zeke for beating her into a power-up, which is a wild way to train. She declares he has no chance now and charges, but Zeke just looks thrilled for a real fight. Leica zips past him in a flash of yellow energy, showing off her new speed. She finally lands a hit, giving Zeke a small cut on his cheek, and he looks shocked. Zeke touches his wound as Leica stands ready, flexing her new 2-star abilities. She prepares to unleash her family's Thunder Greatsword technique with her new power. Zeke is just excited to see some new martial arts he's never encountered before. He grins like a total battle junkie, absolutely pumped to be in a real fight again. Thank you for watching, subscribe.